Hello, YouTubers and NFL fans everywhere. This is Matt, the NFL Fanatic, giving you my Week 8 2023 NFL predictions. Well, for the Fanatic, this past week, it hit for the season a brand new all-time low. Also, not to be confused with the boy band that's considered that's now something all-time low. But objectively, I hit an all-time low this season in both my straight up and against the spread picks. This is one of those weeks objectively to where I wish you could have done one of those to where you picked every favorite, and then in another bracket you could have picked every underdog. Because at least I had a bracket with every underdog, I would have had a phenomenal weekend of how bad all my picks went. Just both against the spread and straight up. It was that bad. So, and I can't remember the last time I was this bad overall for a week, and I'd love to hear everybody else's opinion. I really do wonder if there was anybody out there. I only know of 2 people out of all the people I know that had winning weeks. Definitely straight up against the spread. It was absolutely dreadful, but just to tell everybody. So against the spread and straight up this past week, I went 3-9 against the spread, and straight up I went 4-8. So many different games that everybody should have had different outcomes. Ended up being blowouts or close losses or just really rough spots for my predictions throughout the week. So yeah, definitely not proud of that. But now overall for against the spread and straight up for the year, I'm now against the spread back, unfortunately, under 500. I guess when you have a 3-9 week against the spread with all the predictions I had. The only proud one the only 2 good ones I had were actually the only 3 I had were Thursday, the Patriots covering the 9.5 but winning outright in a massive upset, and the Seahawks. Bad Prater missed a field goal early in the game. They ended up winning by 10 points. I had Seattle -8. So those are the only 3 ones I had against the spread. And straight up, I only had Jacksonville, the Browns, the Chiefs, and the Seahawks. That's it. For a 12 game slate, that was all I got right. So for me, with picking, I'm just gonna flush this one down the toilet and just go on to a new week. But against the spread now overall, though, from that 3-9 week, I'm now 50-53 with 2 pushes against the spread. And straight up now, I am 63-42. So definitely, it took a downswing to where I lost about 3 percentage points in both my against the spread and straight up picks. So right now, that's 60% for the year. Straight up, I can live with that. That's 21. That's 60% even because that's 63 out of 105. 21 times 5 is 105. So, and I have San Francisco -7 tonight. So hopefully I can rebound or end the week on a win up against spread and straight up. But with how the luck's been going, I could definitely see the Minnesota Vikings pull off an upset, especially with how banged up the Niners are. So, but it was just such a crazy week. Atlanta-Tampa was a close game that came down to the wire, and Young Goku kicking a 51-yard field goal. That was a competitive game, but Atlanta pulled out the win. I'll accept that. The Lions-Ravens. I'm not surprised, and let me objectively say for the Ravens, I am thrilled the Ravens won. But that was the best game I've seen the Baltimore Ravens play all year, and that was the best I've seen Lamar Jackson since his MVP season. That was the best game he's had this season, hands down. But this was the best game I've seen him play, maybe even ever in his professional career, dating over the past 6 seasons. That's how well I thought he played yesterday. And I didn't expect the Lions to lay an egg that massive. So there was a loss there. When you had New England Buffalo, again, I took New England +9 because I didn't think Buffalo would score, but I actually didn't think New England would actually win the game. That was nuts. Pittsburgh and the Rams. That was a weird game to where the Pittsburgh Steelers through one half gained 91 yards of total offense, but in the second half were able to outscore the Rams 21-8 to win the game 24-7. They only gained 91 yards total offense, and they were able to outscore the Rams 21-8 in the second half to win for the first time in LA since Super Bowl 14 back in the 70s. That was crazy. Green Bay Denver was a weird back and forth game, and I can accept that. I'm not surprised that Denver won the game. I just thought, the Packers offensive play a little bit better. And it basically came down to Jordan Love throwing a desperation game, or a big chunk play that failed miserably to P.J. Locke. They got his first career interception. and ended the Broncos' 10-game streak of having a halftime lead and blowing the halftime lead in that span at home. And also, they avoided their first ever 0-4 start at home in franchise history. So there was that one. Miami, Philadelphia. I took the Dolphins. That's what I'm going to tell any Dolphins fans out there. I'm going to say this. The Dolphins now is 2.5-point underdogs. Never take that bet because I've done that now twice in the past like 4 weeks, and I've got burned by the Bills and the Eagles respectively. And just Nick Sirianni's aggressive play calling really helped swing the tide for the Eagles in that game. He went for it on 4th and 1 at his own 27 and 37 and got it. And then A.J. Brown ended up having a massive game, his 5th straight game of 125 plus yards receiving, the most tied for the longest streak with Calvin Johnson. And I believe he's only the 3rd receiver in NFL history to have a streak like that in their careers. So that was how that loss happened. And the brotherly shove, which is now 41 of 44 over the past 2 seasons, 93% accuracy with that play. They have basically found a way to pretty much guarantee if you have a 4th and 1, they will go for it every time, no matter what, because they have that much confidence in that play for it to work. So, and as Nick Sirianni said after the game, if it was so great, everybody would be doing it as well as we are, and obviously everybody is not. It's still a successful play if you run it, but it's about 30% difference, about 65% for the rest of the league, about 93% for the Eagles. So about 30% difference, which in a way is a massive perspective in a lot of the games that they play. So, but that's how. But I just wanted to explain that's how bad my week was overall. So I am happy though to have a 16-game slate. Very weird that we're at week 8 and we have a break from the buys in terms of it's a full 16-game slate. Next week we're gonna go back to buys. And week 9 is a 14-game slate. So that'll be very interesting, but I just wanted to just tell it to everybody. So definitely after having the shortest week, it's good to have a 16-game week back. And let's hope for everybody out there that does picks that I and everybody else will do better. So, all right, it's time for my picks. So on Thursday, when the 3-3 Tampa Bay Buccaneers travel to Buffalo to take on the 4-3 Buffalo Bills, the Buffalo Bills are 7.5-point favorites in this game. Give me Buffalo here to win straight up, but I'm going to take Tampa Bay plus 7.5. Then the next game, when the 3-4 Los Angeles Rams travel to Dallas to take on the 4-2 Dallas Cowboys, the Dallas Cowboys are 6.5-point favorites in this game. Give me Dallas here, minus 6.5, and Dallas straight up. Then the next game, when the 2-5 or 3-4 Minnesota Vikings travel to Green Bay to take on the 2-4 Green Bay Packers. The Green Bay Packers are 1.5-point favorites in this game. In a slight upset here, I'm going to take Minnesota here, plus 1.5, and Minnesota straight up. Then next game, when the 4-3 Atlanta Falcons travel to Tennessee to take on the 2-4 Tennessee Titans. The Atlanta Falcons are 1.5-point favorites in this game. Give me the Atlanta Falcons here, minus 1.5, and the Atlanta Falcons straight up. Then the next game, when the 3-4 New Orleans Saints travel to Indianapolis to take on the 3-4 Indianapolis Colts. The Indianapolis Colts are 1-point favorites in this game. Give me New Orleans here once again in a slight upset. New Orleans here plus 1 and New Orleans straight up. Then the next game, when the 2-5 New England Patriots travel to Miami to take on the 5-2 Miami Dolphins. The Miami Dolphins are 10-point favorites in this game. Give me the Miami Dolphins here to win straight up. But once again, just like last week in the divisional game, I'm going to take New England here plus 10. Then the next game, the Battle of New York at MetLife, when the 3-3 New York Jets travel to New York, when the 3-3 New York Jets get to play the 2-5 New York Giants in their same stadium, the great battle of about 90 minutes away from each other. The New York Jets are 3-point favorites in this game. Give me the New York Jets here, minus 3, and New York Jets straight up. Then the next game, when the 5-2 Pittsburgh Steelers, next game, when the 5-2 Jacksonville Jaguars travel to Pittsburgh to take on the 4-2 Pittsburgh Steelers. The Jacksonville Jaguars are 2-point favorites in this game. Give me Jacksonville here, minus 2, and Jacksonville straight up. Then the next game, when the 6-1 Philadelphia Eagles travel to Washington to take on the 3-4 Washington Commanders. The Philadelphia Eagles are 6.5-point favorites in this game. Give me Philadelphia here, minus 6.5, and Philadelphia straight up. Then the next game, in the battle of the number 1 overall pick versus the number 2 overall pick of this past year's draft, the 3-3 Houston Texans travel to the 0-6 Carolina Panthers. The Houston Texans are 3-point favorites in this game. Give me Houston here -3 and Houston straight up. Then the next game, when the 4-2 Cleveland Browns travel to Seattle to take on the 4-2 Seattle Seahawks. The Seattle Seahawks are 2.5-point favorites in this game. Give me Cleveland here +2.5. But I'm going to take the Seattle Seahawks straight up. Then the next game, when the 6-1 Kansas City Chiefs travel to Denver to take on the 2-5 Denver Broncos. The Kansas City Chiefs are 8-point favorites in this game. Give me Kansas City here -8 and Kansas City straight up. Then the next game, when the 5-2 Baltimore Ravens travel to Arizona to take on the 1-6 Arizona Cardinals. The Baltimore Ravens are 8.5-point favorites in this game. Give me Baltimore here -8.5 and Baltimore straight up. Then the next game, when the 3-3 Cincinnati Bengals travel to San Francisco to take on the 5-2 or 6-1 San Francisco 49ers. The San Francisco 49ers are 5.5-point favorites in this game. Give me the San Francisco 49ers here straight up, but I'm going to take Cincinnati +5.5. Then the next game, when the 2-5 Chicago Bears travel to Los Angeles to take on the 2-4 Los Angeles Chargers. The Los Angeles Chargers are 8.5-point favorites in this game. Give me the Los Angeles Chargers here to win straight up, but I'm going to take Chicago +8.5. And then in the Monday night game, when the 3-4 Las Vegas Raiders travel to Detroit to take on the 5-2 Detroit Lions. The Detroit Lions are 8-point favorites in this game. Give me Detroit here -8 and Detroit straight up. All right, it's time for my quick thoughts on each game. The Buffalo Bills over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This is a game to where, look, I want to give Mike Evans some credit. He caught a big touchdown, but he caught his 85th touchdown of his career, so he extends his own record for the most touchdowns in Buccaneers franchise history. And the game was really awkward. I felt that both offenses, both for the Bucs and the Falcons, really could not move the ball. You know, you could argue with the Falcons, they kept shooting themselves in the foot with the 3 red zone turnovers from Desmond Ridder. But also at the same time, though, Tampa Bay's defense has done a very good job this year. They've allowed the 6th fewest points allowed the entire year. And I think that's an impressive part for them. Unfortunately, the offense has died out tremendously. That basically, besides Mike Evans, not a lot of other great offensive weapons are happening for Tampa. And in 3 of the last 4 games, they have scored 1 or fewer touchdowns. In 3 of the last 4 games. And when you have a game like that, Baker Mayfield has thrown an interception in 4 straight games. This is just one of those aspects to where with Tampa that if Baker's not effectively moving the ball, it's not going to be able to win you a lot of games, and you're going to lose a game at home that you shouldn't have to a second-year quarterback that just the previous week had thrown 3 interceptions that cost them a game against the Commander team, which obviously after what we saw yesterday is not very good. No offense to Commanders fans, but just being honest. And, you know, and you're playing a Buffalo team at the same time that it's really kind of shaking itself to where they're still in the division race, but I would probably take Miami moving forward over Buffalo because the Bills, outside of Josh Allen, cannot really move the ball that well. Josh Allen had his 29th game of a rushing and passing touchdown, which I believe puts him 3rd or 4th all time on that list in terms of that accomplishment. And through 3 quarters in the past 3 games, the Bills have scored 10 or fewer points in 3 consecutive games through 75% of the game, which is dreadful, especially with all the talent they have. James Cook yesterday was at a bright spot, though, of 1 or 2 scrimmage yards. And the other problem is the Bills in this game, they have become very much like the Dolphins in a way. Unfortunately, it's not as smooth or as many, offensive-driven systems of Mike McDaniel compared to Sean McDermott. They've become way too Stephon Diggs reliant to really trust them moving forward or to trust that they can make other receiving options consistent threats. Stephon Diggs has 52.5% of the wide receiver yards for the Bills this year. You should be able to throw to a Shakur or a Gabe Davis or a Deontay Hardy or just other receivers to get them into play because Stephon Diggs is basically going to have a double team the entire game. But they just can't seem to really move the ball offensively through the air sans Stephon Diggs. And it's a really bad sign. And the defensive injuries of Matt Milano, Trey White, Micah Hyde, Jordan Poyer, I know, the defensive injuries of Ed Oliver didn't play, that these injuries are really starting to stack up for the Bills. And on that last drive against the Patriots, it really looked like they needed if those guys were there, the Patriots probably do not get that drive all the way down to win within the last 15 seconds. So the reason why I'm taking the Bills, though, primarily, is that I trust in this spot where you have two teetering teams in respective divisions where they're both second in their division. I feel like the Bills have a little bit more offensive firepower, and they're home. The Buffalo Bills against the Bucs have never lost to the Bucs at home in franchise history, and I just trust that Josh Allen them should be able to put up together a good enough offensive game plan that they'll score within the first 3 quarters more than 10 points. And I just don't think with Baker, with how ineffective that offensive line has been, I think Buffalo is able to pull out a victory in a tough, gritty situation to get to 5-3 and save their hopes of trying to move forward in the division in a competitive game. But I'm taking Tampa here plus 7.5 because honestly, if New England could cover a 9-point spread, I think Tampa could at least cover at least a 7+ spread of how they've been playing over the past few this year so far. So that's why I like Buffalo here straight up, but Tampa Bay plus 7.5. The next game, the Dallas Cowboys over the Los Angeles Rams. I am taking the Dallas Cowboys here based on the fact of that the Dallas Cowboys just seem to me to be very effective, or just the Cowboys just seem they're rested, and it's kind of an interesting stat for everybody out there. In the Mike McCarthy era, they have been in 3 straight one-score games. So maybe the spread pick could be a little bit tough, but in the Mike McCarthy era for the Cowboys, every time they come off their bye, they're always in a one-score game, regardless of the opponent. And I do want to shout out Puka Nacua, though. The second player was 700 receiving yards. He's averaging over 100 yards receiving through his first 7 career games. Only Jamar Chase from the Bengals a couple years ago was the only one able to copy that feat. And also, I think one thing that really screwed the Rams, not only just the bad clock management for Sean McVay and timeout management, because I honestly didn't think Kenny Pickett got that first down, which the refs gave to Pittsburgh to ice the game. I did not think he got that, and if Sean McVay had a timeout, he probably could have made that challenge, and he probably would have won. But unfortunately, that was the case. But it's also Brett Maher has now gone 3 games of missing 2 field goals in crucial spots. And I know you can say, well, 6 points doesn't matter. But in one of those spots, it could have been a 10-point game. And if you told Kenny Pickett that you had to, do more than 1 touchdown drive to tie a game, I think they probably could have won with just even 1 extra field goal being made in that spot. And I think 2 of them were 41-yarders or shorter. So definitely Brett the Fret is coming back. And also, I think this is why I'm going with Dallas as well. The Rams defense, for as much talent that Aaron Donald and some of the other members of the Rams defense has, and they have some good young pieces that I'm a fan of, they've only forced 5 turnovers this year. And in 3 of their 4 losses this year at home, they've been outscored in the second half, 40-15. So the Rams have shown you that they can be competitive and pretty much play with you throughout most of the games, but they just can't score in the second half, and they're just getting outworked in those spots. And I think also with that lack of turnovers, this is why I'm going with Dallas. Dallas has a top 5 offense and top 5 defense in terms of points scored and points allowed this year. And Dak is 4-0 without a turnover this year and 0-2 with 1 or more. So, and you could say, well, if the Rams do get a couple turnovers, that could be the difference, and that's true. But also, I think the Rams, even though they have Puka and Cooper and they have the better receiving core, CD's been phenomenal as well. CD Lamb has 475 receiving yards. The next 2 closest wide receivers combined have 309 all themselves. But it's something to where when I look at Dallas, who is kind of in a rough spot here, because the last 3 times the Rams have gone, the LA Rams, not the St. Louis ones, the LA Rams are going to Dallas, they've won. So the Cowboys have not won this game that often in home against this Rams team. I just feel like with Dallas, they're rested, they're more consistent, they'll be motivated, they'll get healthier. And I just don't think with the Rams, with the Kyren Williams injury, Darrell Henderson, I don't think will be able to run the ball that effectively. I think that they'll be able to get through the Rams offensive line with good ease, so Cooper and Puka won't be as effective. And I think in a way, with Gilmore probably going on Puka, and then Bland trying to go with Kupp, I just don't see the Rams moving the ball offensively enough with consistency that the Cowboys can with their running attack and offensive line just be able to kind of raid into the Rams and win the game and good and at least by one score fashion. And the last time I believe they played, the Cowboys won 44-21. I don't think it'll be that decisive a win, but I do think the Cowboys have enough talent all around and they should be able to hold their home field and beat the Rams in a competitive game that puts the Cowboys still in a good spot as one of the top 3 or 4 teams in the NFC. So that's why I like Dallas here, -6.5, and Dallas straight up. The next game, the Minnesota Vikings over the Green Bay Packers. This is one to where I just do not trust Jordan Love through these last 3 games. The first 3 games, he had 7 touchdowns to 1 interception. Or in his first, yeah. And then over the last 3 games since then, where they've been on this 3-game losing streak, he has 3 touchdowns to 6 interceptions. And it's a really bad thing to say here, but Tyson Bagent, the Division II backup quarterback the Bears signed, looked much more effective against the same Raiders defense that Jordan Love played 3 weeks ago. So that tells you maybe how bad that Jordan Love, that the love is maybe gone for the Packers, and that they made a stupid mistake by giving him another $25 million for a guy that's just telling you through 3 or 4 years experience, he's kind of a scrub. Or he's playing more like a scrub than they initially thought. And also, I think Aaron Jones has been hampered. A.J. Dillon had double the carries, 15-7 over Aaron Jones, so I think he's the better rusher. And I just look at this Packers team, and I give a shout out Isaiah McDuffie, though he had 10 total tackles in the game against the Broncos. He was probably the most effective tackler. I just trust that Kirk Cousins will finally be able to go into Lambeau and get his second career win. You know, and I get the point of where if people took the Vikings, or people took the Packers. Ezra Cleveland, one of their guards, has a significant injury, and Dalton Risner is expected to start tonight and probably moving forward. They cannot run the ball to save their life. They've had the third fewest rushing attempts in the league since the season began, and they gained their lowest amount of total yards offensively without Justin Jefferson last week against the Bears. And they're playing the Niners tonight, even with a couple banged up guys in their defense. I think that the Niners should be able to hold on and stifle the Vikings offense once again. But I'm taking the Vikings here just because I trust Kirk Cousins in this spot to where I think he can outplay Jordan Love and Lambeau. The last time a division rival went into Lambeau, it was the Lions, and the Lions put up a pretty much well-rounded performance, offense, defense, and special teams. And I think the Vikings may not be able to put up that level of performance, but I trust the Vikings with Kirk, Addison, Hawkinson, with the Vikings defense making some plays, though I think Jordan Love should be able to make opportunities. But to be fair, the Vikings defense is a little bit better than Denver's, and the Packers could only score 17 points. And Andres Carlson, Daniel Carlson's younger brother, definitely had a tough day, especially when he missed that 38 or 40-yard field goal that basically, in hindsight, would have won the game for the Packers 2019. So Kirk's 1-2 and 1 all time against the Packers as the Vikings quarterback, 7 TDs, 6 interceptions in those four games in Lambeau. But I'm going to take the Vikings here just because I just trust Cousins and that offense up with O'Connell enough that I think Jordan Love will continue to struggle against the decent coordinator Brian Flores. And I think Kirk outplays Love to give the Packers their 4th straight loss. And for the 2nd straight year, Matt LaFleur is having to deal with a 4-game losing streak in the middle of the year. So that's why I like Minnesota here, plus 1.5, and Minnesota is straight up. The next game, the Atlanta Falcons over the Tennessee Titans. This is one to where I'm taking Atlanta because I do not trust the Titans' offense at all. Shout out to Keith Bailey, buddy. Sorry that your offense has been this bad. So Desmond Ridder got his first road win of his professional career, and I also want to shout out to him that he's the first quarterback since 2000 to have 3 red zone turnovers and to get a victory. And Younghoe Koo has now hit already 3 game-winning field goals in the first 7 weeks of the year. So he has definitely been, in terms of big situations, the most clutch kicker this year in the league for the Falcons. Tyler Algier had a very nice game as well. He had 1 or 2 scrimmage yards, which I thought was impressive. But the Falcons, even with everything going on, they're playing a Titan team that has been absolutely dreadful offensively. Let me explain a couple of fun stats for you. The Tennessee Titans, in their 4 losses this year, have 12 field goals and have scored only 2 offensive touchdowns in four games in their 4 losses. And the other fun fact that I want to give everybody is that the Tennessee Titans offensive players, offensive line, skill positions, and quarterback have scored the same amount of points as their special teams kicker, Nick Folk. That is not a joke. That is an actual statistic. Nick Folk has scored 52 points, and the Tennessee Titans offense has scored 52 points offensively in touchdowns or 2-point conversions or all different aspects like that. And also, the other big reason why I'm going with Atlanta is Ryan Tannehill's ankle sprain. Apparently, he suffered a high ankle sprain in London against the Baltimore Ravens, and that should knock him out for at least a few weeks, which means that Malik Willis will get his 4th career start. And ladies and gentlemen, Malik Willis is garbage. Malik Willis, out of that 2022 draft class, he might be the worst quarterback out of all of them. And that's saying something with Desmond Ridder and Kenny Pickett being in that same class. Malik Willis might be the worst one out of all of them. Because the man, through his career in about 4 games, he has not even thrown an NFL touchdown yet. He hasn't even done the primary job of the quarterback, which is throw the football into the end zone. He has never done that, and with that Falcons defense, the way it's playing, he may not do it again. And if the Titans have to keep going with Malik Willis, I give him this game. If he sucks this game, I am benching his rear end and putting Will Levis in there. Because honestly, I think Will Levis is a better quarterback than Malik Willis is. He is. Or just give him the shot. Like, this guy for the Titans has been so bad that if Tannehill can't go, I just can't expect Malik Willis against this Falcons defense, which has been pretty much stout and impressive all year, to be able to move the ball that much. That's even with Derrick Henry. Pretty much all they have to do is just stack the box against Derrick Henry and have Malik Willis try to throw the football. It's not going to work for the Titans. It never has through the 3 games he started. So, do I think the Titans could win? Sure, if Derrick Henry goes off against his, and they definitely know the offensive scheme because Arthur Smith was Mike Vrabel's offensive coordinator in Tennessee for a while before he took the Falcons job. So maybe there is that familiarity there. So it could be a Giants-Bills situation to where Vrabel knows exactly how to defend against the Falcons offense. But I just think the Falcons offense has a bit more talent, and I'll trust Desmond Ridder to make a few more throws and runs than I would trust Malik Willis or Tannehill at this point, even though Tannehill will not be 100% if he plays. So I think it's going to be an interesting game. It's an ugly game, but give me the Falcons here. They have the road win monkey off their back. They've looked pretty impressive. They've looked pretty effective, and I'll trust the Falcons' whole structure as a team in terms of receivers and defensive line and Bijan over what I've seen of the Titans so far through 6 games, which have been pretty much ineptitude and an inability to score primarily besides 2 games where he played a horrible Chargers defense and a Bengals team that just literally wanted to quit. So, but that's why I like Atlanta here, -1.5, and Atlanta straight up. The next game, the New Orleans Saints over the Indianapolis Colts. This is a game to where I am taking the New Orleans Saints based on the fact that I do not trust that the Colts can move the ball on the Saints defense effectively. The Saints have a top 7 defense in terms of total points scored and yards allowed. And for the Saints, once again, Blake Grupe missed another field goal, which, again, it was a 51-yarder, but that kid, he's not very good. And I really do think that New Orleans does miss Will Lutz, who's been incredibly effective for the Broncos this year. And I look at what the Saints did, and I just go, well, it hasn't been that effective. And I just think, here's the thing with the Colts. They played the Cleveland Browns, who had, going into the day, the best defense in the NFL by a mile. But they gave up 456 total yards of offense against the Cleveland Browns. Cleveland went into the game where I believe nobody in the league through 6 weeks had even got 300 yards total offense. The Colts got 456 total yards. Jonathan Taylor had a phenomenal day with 120 scrimmage yards, and Josh Downs, the rookie wide receiver from North Carolina, had a career high with 125 receiving yards in the game. But the reason why the Colts lost primarily was because Gardner Minshew kept coughing up the football. It's the second time in Gardner Minshew's career that he's lost 3 fumbles in a single game. And every time they allowed one of those turnovers, the Browns ended up getting points off of that, which could have been which was the difference in the game. And I just think if Derek Carr has any gumption, any guts, any heart, because right now he's playing like a tin man. And I am just going to say this for everybody out there. Jameis Winston, maybe the black Derek Carr, put Jameis out there, objectively. Because I think Jameis Winston could play just as well, if not better, than Derek Carr. And to be fair, it was Blake Grupe who screwed him out of the win against the Packers. Blake Grupe makes a 46-yard field goal, and that Grupe becomes that Grupe actually elevates over a Grupe. And I honestly don't think Blake Grupe could make a field goal to a grouper fish at this point. But again, but that's all I'm saying, though, is that if the Saints lose this game to Gardner Minshew, who basically coughed up the game, it is time to put the black Derek Carr, Jameis Winston, into games. And I'm not the only person that says this. Stan Verrett from ESPN, and New Orleans native, and more Saints fans are realizing Derek Carr's not the answer. And Jameis Winston, at least through some of the talent, would be able to make some more plays and probably would be able to take some more deep shots. And he also has a little bit more composure compared to Derek Carr, who loves yelling at Chris Olave and for no reason when he overchucks the ball by 15 yards. So for me, I'm taking the Saints here because I just trust the Saints defense should be able to hold the Colts in check with Gardner. And I just think Derek Carr should be able to move the ball a little more effectively. It's close, and the Saints have also won 4 straight games against the Colts overall in the series. So I think with the Saints, they're kind of rolling through the momentum. And I think it's something where I trust that Carr can make a few more plays to Minshew. If it's wrong, then the Saints have a massive problem. And for the Colts to get the 500 through 8 games, they're not out of the playoff race by any stretch. And I think Shane Steichen would be my coach of the year based on how impressive he's had to go through with all the injuries and turmoil and suspensions that this year has gone for them. So, but that's why I like New Orleans here +1 and New Orleans straight up. The next game, the Miami Dolphins over the New England Patriots. This is a game to where, look, Bill Belichick, congratulations. He got his 300th career regular season victory. He is now the 3rd coach to have reached that mark. Only George Halas and Don Shula have won 300 or more games in this moment. And Mac Jones, that was the best game of Mac Jones' career. It was a career-saving game for Mac Jones, but it was definitely the best game Mac Jones has had this entire season. And they held the Bills' offense with a lot of the talent to under 250 yards through 3 quarters. So I was incredibly impressed with how well the Patriots defense played without 2 of their 2 best defensive players, and Christian Gonzalez and Matt Judon, not playing. And that was basically the difference in the game. And you basically could tell in the Pats game that as soon as Josh Allen threw that horrible interception to Jabril Peppers, the first play of the game, the Pats got a 10-point lead and they held on to grind out a victory. And, and look, and here's the thing with the Patriots is that I've been impressed that they've been able to kind of hang on. But for the Dolphins, I think, and here, let me say this about the Dolphins. The reason I'm going with the Dolphins is that, yes, the Dolphins had their lowest amount of total yards and rushing yards and points by a Dolphins team this year. And Tyreek Hill was the only effective member of the offense. I know Jalen Waddle had 67 yards, but it basically showed that no Dolphin receiver at Tyreek Hill got more than 66 yards, and no Dolphin receiver had more than 2 receptions outside of Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill. But this Dolphins-Patriots game, Mike McDaniel and Tua have never lost to Belichick, and Bill Belichick in his career going to Miami has been his bugaboo for his entire coaching tenure there. He has a 9-13 record all-time in Miami as the Patriots head coach. I think the only other record that he has a losing record in this stadium is Denver, Colorado with the Broncos. And to me, it's just something to where I think the Dolphins, will bounce back. They usually, with the loss they had, they played better the next week. They would win. And I think the Dolphins, they know they're going up against the Patriots team, does not build offensively. And I just think that Mike McDaniel just really matches well with Belichick in terms of the offensive schemes against defensive ones. And usually the Kyle Shanahan schemes really make Bill Belichick, it's very difficult to manage it and coach them well or to beat them. But I will take the Dolphins here because I feel like they're more talented. And where people are going to say the Dolphins are fraudulent, I'm not going to go that far. I just think it's something to where they are clearly, I think, at best, the fourth best team in the AFC after this week. I would say, in my order, Chiefs at 1, Ravens at 2. I'm not being a homer, just for the record. Ravens at 2, the Jaguars at 3, the Miami Dolphins are the 4, and my 5 would be Pittsburgh as of this moment. But in this game, I just think the Dolphins, they should hopefully get Xavier Howard back. They're going to get Jalen Ramsey back here in a couple weeks. But I just really believe in the Dolphins to bounce back in an environment that Bill Belichick has a difficult time working with. And Mike McDaniel is not Sean McDermott, and Tua is not Josh Allen. And just I think that trend with the talent and consistency just rolls forward into another loss for Belichick in Miami, which will drop in the 9-14 all time in that environment. It should be an interesting game. And again, they won by 7 the last time. So I will take the plus 10 points because I'm going to give the Patriots defense their credit. But I think offensively, they're just not going to be able to move the ball as much. And I think the Dolphins can play a much more cleaner and consistent game compared to New England in this environment, especially with the history of Miami for Belichick. So that's why I like the Miami Dolphins here to win straight up in New England plus 10. The next game, the New York Jets over the New York Giants, the battle of the Big Apple. I want to give the New York Jets defense their credit. Because for Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, and Jalen Hurts, 3 very good quarterbacks in a lot of people's eyes, they have, in those 3 games, held those 3 respective quarterbacks to their lowest overall quarterback rating for the year. And so I think that Jets defense, that should be the one thing that should be credited. It's incredibly impressive. And the Jets have a formula where in every one of their wins, they have forced at least 3 or more turnovers in those games to win. And I think going up against a Giants team that has had some turnover issues, especially with Daniel Jones, I don't know if Tyrod's going to play. I just think the Jets defense should be able to make a few more plays that give them shorter fields compared to the Giants. Because the Giants have been a horrible offensive team, and even though I do want to give Tyrod Taylor some credit, Tyrod Taylor was able to finally drive the Giants into the end zone for the first half all year. It took them 7 weeks. But they finally scored 2 first half touchdowns. One was to Darren Waller, and the other one was to Saquon Barkley. But they actually did that, and Tyrod, through those 2 passes, has the same amount of touchdowns that Daniel Jones has had in 2 games. Also, I do want to give the Giants defense credit because they got 6 sacks yesterday. Going into the game, they'd only had 5 the whole year. So the fact that they sacked Sam Howell 6 times was incredibly impressive, just how pathetic the Washington offensive line was yesterday. And the Jets have won the last 2 games against the Giants, and it's just something to where I feel like Daniel Jones is getting closer and closer to coming back. And I remember the last time they played, and Daniel was there, it was a weird game. It was a 7-point game. I just feel like with this Jets defense, with the confidence they have, I believe Zach will commit fewer mistakes than Tyrod or Daniel Jones. And I think the Jets understand that they are in a much more advantageous position with the confidence they've had over the last few weeks compared to the Giants, who got a win, but it definitely wasn't as consistent or as inspiring as you would want in a Giants team that has played better with Tyrod Taylor, but they're probably going to go back to Daniel Jones if he's not hurt, which I think is a travesty, but that's just the problem is with the contract that Daniel Jones got. Should be a tough, low scoring. I think the over-under was 36.5. I don't usually do this, but if you're going to bet an over-under with this game, take the under by a mile and stick with it, because this game could very much end up being a scoregami of like a 3-0, 3-5 game, because I do not see the ball moving a lick with these defenses the way they've been playing over the last couple weeks. So I'm going to take the Jets, more experience, a little bit more talent, and I trust the Jets defense being able to cause a couple more turnovers than the Giants that will determine the winner of this game. So that's why the New York Jets here, -3, and the New York Jets straight up. The next game, The Jacksonville Jaguars over the Pittsburgh Steelers. This is one to where I want to give the Jaguars credit. They are now 8-0 all time on Thursday Night Football. They have never lost on the TNF program. And they have the second longest active win streak in the NFL at 4 straight victories. Also, Foyesade Aluakan has been a phenomenal tackler over the last couple years since they signed him from Atlanta. He is the second leading tackler in the NFL with 81 combined tackles. And Travis Etienne, who scored 2 more rushing touchdowns in the game on last Thursday, joins Maurice Jones-Drew as the only 2 running backs with 2 plus rushing touchdowns in a 3-game span, or in multiple games in a 3-game span. So that's incredibly impressive. The Jags have their best start since 2017, and I feel Jacksonville has played very well. And the problem is, though, is that this game is so weird. It's so small because it's Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh has just found ways to win, and it's crazy because it's the argument of saying it's not like college to where, you know, the scope and the margin matters. For Pittsburgh, look, they've been outgained by 661 yards this year, and they have a minus 24 point differential, but they're a 4-2 football team, which is amazing. TJ Watt, who I probably would say is him and Myles Garrett are the only 2 players for Defensive Player of the Year. He has 8 sacks this year, 3 forced fumbles, 2 fumble recoveries, a touchdown, and an interception that basically changed the momentum of the game. But my problem is why I'm going with Jacksonville is 2 reasons. One, Pittsburgh's offense cannot run the ball to save their life, and George Pickens is the only receiver for the Steelers this year that has gotten over 100 yards. I think Deontay Johnson yesterday against the Rams got the second most receiving yards for a Pittsburgh receiver the whole year, and he was out the last 4 games due to that hamstring injury. So I just cannot trust this Pittsburgh offense to save my life. And the game's in Pittsburgh. Here's a fun stat, the stat of the day for this Jacksonville-Pittsburgh game. Jacksonville at home has played Pittsburgh in 6 games. When the Jags are at home, the Steelers have won 5 of the 6 road games for the Steelers. For Jacksonville, when they have to go to Pittsburgh, Jacksonville's won 5 of the last 6 road games against the Steelers. 2 of them being playoff games. Arguably three of them. And it's just downright weird that that's an actual stat, but it is true. But I'm going to take Jacksonville because being on the road, and I just feel like Trevor Lawrence is a quarterback, and they have a good enough system with Ridley and that offensive line, especially with the way Alton has been playing and Cam's been setting up since his return from suspension. I think the Jags can hold on and win this game in a tough, gritty way with the defensive talent they have, and I do not think they will get at least two turnovers. Pittsburgh will, and I think that keeping of possession along with draining out the clock with the offensive weapons they have, especially against a defense that is the second worst defense in yards throughout the league, and that is why I'm going with Jacksonville. Just because, again, I feel like with the momentum of this series, the way it's going, with Jacksonville's confidence now winning 4 straight, and Pittsburgh just being so awkward that, again, could Pittsburgh win the game? Sure. But I'm going to take Jacksonville because I think they have the better talent, they have the better skill positions, and I think they have a bit of a better momentum shift and quarterback that can make some plays against the Pittsburgh defense that at times this year, due to Stroud and Purdy, have looked pretty anemic and pretty pathetic. So, but that's why I like Jacksonville here, -2, and Jacksonville straight up. The next game, the Philadelphia Eagles over the Washington Commanders. This is one where Washington sucks. Washington is a bad football team. There is no way, with the offensive weapons that you had, Sam Howell, the way he's been playing, you shouldn't have lost to the New York Giants, who were one of the most inept offenses in the league. And you're playing the Eagles, who are coming off a massive victory. And again, you could argue, the last time they played each other early in the year, it was a 3-point game that went into overtime. The Riverboat Ron could have sealed with a 2-point conversion, but decided not to and played for overtime, which he lost. And I already mentioned all the Eagles stats earlier. The Commanders, it's just not great. Riverboat Ron's going to get fired. And Eric Bieniemy will be looking for a job once again because I cannot justify to you that he deserves to be the head coach of the team with how bad he's been as the offensive coordinator. Do I think he deserves a head coaching job? Yes. But do I think he'll get it with the Washington Commanders? Probably not. And it was crazy, too, because one of the key plays of the game, Kayvon Thibodeau made a huge blocked field goal from 29 yards that it was the first game the Commanders also lost this year with getting 2 defensive turnovers. And I just look at this game, the Eagles and the Commanders, and say the Eagles have more talent. They're going to be a bit more rested. They the offensive line is going to get killed from the Eagles' defensive line, which was a menace to all game. Fun fact too, Tua Tagovailoa, when he sacked Tua more times, now has a losing record of 10-11. So that is the big thing you have to do against Tua, is generate a good amount of pressure, because if he gets sacked, he starts to get rattled and he can't make his timely and consistent throws as he does with a clean pocket. So, but just a little aside there. But I'm taking Philadelphia here. Much more consistent team. The Washington offensive line will get harassed to death by the Eagles defensive line, and I think the Eagles secondary should be able to hold up better against the Commanders receiving core that will not seem as effective due to Sam Howell not having any time to run and scramble to make plays. So that's why I like Philadelphia here, -6.5. Philadelphia straight up. The next game, the Houston Texans over the Carolina Panthers. The Houston Texans this year have been probably the biggest surprise and most pleasant surprise of the season so far. C.J. Stroud this year has 9 touchdowns to only 1 interception through 6 games. He unfortunately is completing a little bit under 60% of his passes, so I would like that accuracy to go up, but he's a rookie and he's played exceptionally well. And I think with the Texans, they'll keep improving. Nico Collins has proven to be CJ's most reliable receiver. He's leading the team with 547 receiving yards. And the Texans defense has allowed the third fewest passing touchdowns in the league this year, and they have allowed the 8th fewest points in the league this year, which is a testament to how great DeMeco Ryans has been as head coach of the team. And this is the battle between number 1 and number 2 draft picks. Number 2 draft pick looks very comfortable and consistent, where the number 1 draft pick looks frazzled, confused, and just meek through the games they played. The Panthers have a bottom 10 offense and defense, and Carolina has the second worst run defense in the entire league. And I trust with Dameon Pierce and the other runners that they have, that they should be able to run the ball effectively with that Texan offensive line getting some more reps and getting time. And I just don't see how the Panthers can avoid an 0-7 hole with how inept that their offense has been, where they have the most pass attempts in the league. They've thrown the ball the most times, but they have the 8th fewest passing yards in that span. So, and again, just like I always say about rookies, until a rookie is actually able to win a game, and then I will be picking against you for that, I will be picking against the rookie every time it happens until they prove me wrong. So, it should be an interesting game. Do I think the Panthers should have looked better offensively, could put up a fight? Yes. But I'm going to take the Texans here. Better defense, better coach at this point, and a more consistent, a higher level of quarterback that I just don't think Bryce Young, with that banged up Panthers defense, can respond to effectively. So that's what I like Houston here, -3, and Houston straight up. The next game, the Seattle Seahawks over the Cleveland Browns. This is one to where, look, Myles Garrett was phenomenal. He's probably the second or first pick for Defensive Player of the Year. He finished the Colts game with 2 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, 9 tackles, a pass deflected, and a blocked field goal. He also he also surpassed Reggie White for the most sacks before he turned 28 years old. He has been incredibly dominant, incredibly consistent, an absolute animal for the Cleveland Browns, who won being led by him. And it was the most points scored for the Browns since Week 9 of the 2021 season. And that was with Deshaun Watson going 1 for 5 for 5 yards and a pick that should have been 2. And the reason why I'm going with Seattle is based off the injury report I heard just before I did this video, to where Deshaun Watson does not know if he re-injured his shoulder. And Kevin Stefanski just said a bit ago he did not decline, saying that Deshaun Watson might go on IR, which would guarantee him out for the next 4 games, which would be dreadful for the Browns. Because even though as good as that defense has been, P.J. Walker yesterday was 18 of 34 for 154 yards, could not throw the ball effectively, could not move the ball effectively. And that's why I have to go with Seattle. Because the Seahawks, they have had their moments to where they've been able to move the ball effectively, and they won this game without DK Metcalf, by the way, which is a little impressive. Because DK is arguably their number 1 wide receiver, number 2 at worst. But I am taking the Seattle Seahawks here based on the fact of the quarterback question. I'm going to take Cleveland here plus 2.5 regardless, because every game the Browns have been in, they have made the opposing quarterback look very bad in terms of turnovers and just costly mistakes. Even though, to be fair though, for the Colts, they did put up over 400 yards offense against this Browns defense that hadn't given up 300 all year. And I just think, again, I think with the Browns secondary the way it is, the talent they have, I think Gino's going to have a mightily difficult time struggling with the football. I just think the Seattle defense can make a few plays on some pass breakups, sacks, or picks that give the Browns the that give the Seahawks the win at the end of the game. I'll trust Hopkins over Myers. That's fair. But I am taking Seattle here based on the quarterback question in hand, and I will stick with Seattle regardless if Deshaun plays or not. I just do not think he will play because he wasn't willing to practice, and it took him a couple of days to wait for this long for this response. I do not like Cleveland's chances. Also, I do want to shout out there Jackson Smith-Njigba. He caught his first career touchdown, and Devin Witherspoon is definitely in the defensive rookie of the year conversation, and it's incredibly impressive in that way. So, but that's why I like Cleveland here, plus 2.5, but Seattle straight up. The next game, the Kansas City Chiefs over the Denver Broncos. They just played this game not even 2 weeks ago, or it'll be a little over 2 weeks ago. Kansas City, it's the only defense in the NFL this year to hold every opponent to 21 or fewer points. Travis Kelce had a career high in receiving yards. And it's phenomenal, too, because there is a Taylor Swift effect going on with the Chiefs, especially for Travis Kelce. In the 4 games Taylor Swift has been in attendance in New York or the Chiefs' home games, he's averaged 108 yards receiving per game. In the game where he wasn't there, he's only averaging 47. So there is an effect there. And the Chiefs now have 13 straight division wins, which is the longest streak in the NFL for any team. And, when I look at this Chiefs Broncos game, look, Mahomes has never lost to the Broncos. Nothing has changed in about 11, or in about 8, 9, 10, 11, in about 12 or 13 days. So in 11 days, that would make me feel any different. And I think for the Broncos, should they gain a little confidence for how they played against the Packers? Sure. Their defense has played better over the last 2 weeks, which is a surprise. They have held opponents to 19 or fewer points in back-to-back games, which is something I wouldn't expect. And Lutz made 4 field goals. But objectively, I just think the Chiefs, have the offensive talent, and it's just the same old for Patrick and Andy, who have the highest winning percentage through about 100 starts in NFL history, 80.2%. Which is remarkable that they have won that many games through 101 career starts. Do I think Denver can make it competitive? Sure. Look, they made the other game competitive last time. I think they gained a little bit of confidence from their performance yesterday. But at the end of the day with the Chiefs, of how dominant that defense has been, even though Nick Bolin's going to be out now for 2 months with a dislocated wrist, which is a significant blow to their defense, I do think the Chiefs defense will have enough with Charles Omenihu and Chris Jones to effectively rattle Russell Wilson on a consistent basis. And the Chiefs win handily to sweep the Broncos once again for the 6th or 7th straight year. So that's why I like Kansas City here, minus 8.5, and Kansas City minus 8, and Kansas City straight up. The next game, the Baltimore Ravens over the Arizona Cardinals. This is one to where Baltimore was absolutely dominant. Lamar Jackson had the best game of his career. That is the 3rd game of his with a 155 passer rating. Only Tom Brady has more. And for the Ravens, Lamar Jackson became the 4th quarterback in NFL history to have 350-plus passing yards, 3 touchdown passes, a rushing touchdown, and a passer rating of over 150 in a single game. Only Drew Brees, Ryan Fitzpatrick, and Aaron Rodgers and other quarterbacks to accomplish that statistic. Lamar Jackson is also 16-1 all-time against the NFC. It says 16-3 overall, but I think the other 2 games he didn't start. The Ravens have a top 2 defense in the league. And they held the Lions to a season low in total yards of under 300, which is incredibly impressive. And they're playing the Cardinals. The Cardinals, I really want to give the Cardinals defense their credit. They forced 5 turnovers in the last few games, but they amassed their 2nd fewest total yards against the Seahawks defense, which is nowhere near as good. And Matt Prater missed a chip shot field goal, which would have been a good backdoor cover for the Cardinals in perspective. But also the Ravens are also 2-1 all-time in Arizona. I don't think Kyler Murray's going to play. They're going to give him a couple weeks and basically just let him audition for the last 6 games to see how effective he can be and see what teams have won for him. Because right now they have the number 2 overall pick with the Bears winning. And I do think they would take a quarterback with the number 2 overall pick, regardless if it was Caleb Williams, Drake May, or somebody else in that spot. So, do I think Arizona can compete? Sure, because the Ravens have always seemed to show that once they have a dominant performance like this, they will always kind of play back to their competition and make it weird. But I think the Ravens, knowing what's ahead of them, knowing the Pittsburgh and Cleveland, knowing that we're in the best division of football as of this moment, I think they will put their pedal to the metal and get a good big victory. So, at least by 8.5. So, that's what I like Baltimore here, minus 8.5. Baltimore straight up. The next game, the San Francisco 49ers over the Cincinnati Bengals. This is a game to me where, look, San Francisco, Deebo Samuel is going to be out for this game. He's out tonight as well, which is significant, but I just trust the Niners at home in this spot with their offensive line. Hopefully with Trent Williams getting back, Chris McCaffrey running well. And I just trust the Niners scheme more than I do the Bengals with how they were playing. Remember, the last time we saw the Bengals, they only gained 58 yards their last half of football, which is absolutely abysmal. I also think that Brock Purdy will bounce back. I think he will play well tonight, and he will play well against the Bengals defense, which has been inconsistent at most. Joe Burrow lost the last meeting, and the Niners usually routinely win this game, and they've won 4 of the last 5 in this series. And could the Bengals win? Sure, because I think the Niners injuries could have piled up, and I do think for Joe Burrow, it's a confidence builder if he can beat this Niners team, which a lot of people think is one of the best in the NFC. And to me, I'm just going to trust the Niners with that defense and with Purdy playing better and more consistently that they're able to out-scheme and outmaneuver the Bengals offense, which at times with that offensive line is going to be very difficult. So I'm going to take the Bengals here just based on the quarterback play and the confidence of Joe moving forward. So but that's why I like Cincinnati here plus 5.5 and San Francisco straight up. And then the final 2 games, the Los Angeles Chargers over Chicago Bears. Kudos to Tyler Bagent for getting his first career victory. Deontay Foreman also had his first 2 rushing TDs of the season. And DJ Moore, who's been quiet the last couple games in the 2 losses, still is 5th overall in terms of receiving yards. And they showed some defensive hope. Sorry, excuse me. But at the end of the day, and they're playing a Charger team that, once again, one-score Chargers. They're always in this spot. Justin Herbert's now had 28 losses over the past 4 seasons. That's the most in the NFL since he's entered the league. He's also thrown the most fourth-quarter receptions in the league at 17, which is massive for a team that's been in 99 one-score games since the turn of the century, and they're 33 and 56 in those games. But I just think the Chargers have just too much talent, and I just don't think with Bagent, they played a rookie earlier in the year of Aiden O'Connell, where he was effective and moved the ball, but at the end he threw a game-losing interception, and Herbert made a big 4-from-1 conversion to win the game. I could see something similar happening here, where the Chargers make a few different plays that fool him, that give them extra possessions, and I do not expect the Bears defense to be able to hold down this Chargers offense, even with Austin Eckler maybe getting hurt once again. But I'm going to take the Bears plus 8.5 just because it is the Chargers, and it always just feels like they will always kind of weirdly enough with the Bears seem to hang around in games they shouldn't, and I think they hang around enough to cover the spread. And also, there will be a lot of Bears fans there since it is in Los Angeles. So that's why I like the Chargers here to win straight up, but Chicago Bears plus 8.5. And lastly, the Detroit Lions over the Las Vegas Raiders. The Raiders suck. The Raiders' offense was inept with Brian Hoyer. Josh Jacobs, the defending rushing champ, has only averaged 2.9 yards per attempt, which is the lowest for a defending rushing champ since 1979. And the Lions, they have won their last 2 home games against the Falcons and against the Panthers, 2 teams that are around the Raiders level. I know the Raiders are better than the Panthers, but the Falcons by an average of 16 points. And maybe they get David Montgomery back, and I believe the Lions will respond resoundingly from Dan Campbell after that historically bad performance for Dan this year. And I think the Lions still are a good team, and I think they're playing a Raider team that's hobbled, disgruntled, banged up defensively, mad, and I think the Lions will be playing with piss and vinegar and gusto that I think they'll respond to. And I just think it's that easy of a game to pick. I think the Lions, they're not maybe as great as I thought, but they're not as bad as what they showed yesterday. And I think they will take it out on a mediocre at best Raider team that's basically looking at the draft from this point moving forward. So that's why I like Detroit here, -8, and Detroit straight up. But that is it. So those are all my picks for this week. Good luck to all players, coaches, fellow prognosticators, and fantasy players. And please check out the NFL YouTube Prognosticators page for more predictions from people like Hackman's Picks, Geo Knows, Fire and Brim Sports, Sports Fan Entertainment. And until next time, everybody, for my Week 9 predictions, this is Matt the NFL Fanatic signing off. Until next time, everyone, so long.